Dr. Mohamed Elhag, who's going to talk to us about the actual case studies now of how these different types of knowledges can integrate with each other. So without further ado, I'll give you Dr. Mohamed Elhag, who will give us an industrial viewpoint of these applications. You're muted still, Dr. Mohamed. I can see your presentation, but you're still muted. Yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you.
So thanks everyone for the opportunity, and thanks for the presenters and for the organizer as well. So basically, I'm probably just gonna approach the topic, probably more from sort of like commercial, corporate side. The topic of the discussion it is the strategic alignment and digital transformation enablers. It is basically more focused on strategic alignment generally. As we go through, the word strategy is used literally everywhere. Whether we talking about NGOs, corporate, world, education entities, and there is so much, fuzzy words, models, and the rest of it. And many leaders, and in fact, it extends also to many of the policymakers. They tend to get lost within the jargons of the various words, and they really, the discipline itself, as one of the core management disciplines, has evolved over the years into a number of sub-disciplines. Then you start to get, or you see some organizations, where they focus so much on the balance scorecard, and it just becomes the thing for that point of view, or or the KPIs, or the PMOs, or putting leans and the rest of it. So hopefully, what I'm gonna be trying to deliver today is a simplified view of what's really the critical element when it comes to a strategy, and how that strategy can be translated into actual actions in a corporate, basically, or in an organization of any kind. And this is not just limited to organizations. The concept and the principles, it can be applied literally, within any, even at your home, you can apply the same sort of guiding principles. So what I'm going to start with is just want to really simplify our understanding of strategy. So strategy itself started as a military discipline. The military, just with the nature, we have the soldiers, we have the officers, and we have the overall leaders, with the various ranking and the rest of it. They needed some sort of, let's say, frameworks to operate and work together and achieve the various vision and objective that they have. So military as a discipline, contributed hugely to the topic of the strategy. The word strategy itself, has a Greek origin, which is strategia, and as a management discipline, it started, at the early 20th century, and it used to know initially as the business policy. This is literally, just once things translated, from moving from having this as a military discipline, moving to the management discipline and the rest of it. So in very simple terms, the strategy is something that should help us to move from where we are right now to where we want to be in the future. And that future could be in a year's time, couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, and so on and so forth. So it is really a map, and that map has very critical importance, because we see some organizations, the way they treat this map, that it enables them to make things happen. So there is organization that make things happen. There is some organizations who watch things happening, then they react to it. And there is other organization who really wonder what happens. It is quite obvious that the majority of the organization, they really want to be at driving things and making things happening, and cascading those activities and the rest of it, throughout the organization. So to make things happen, there is few critical, let's say, culture and other attributes within the organization that need to be embedded. Obviously within the leadership, but it's also something that get cascaded down to the various workforce. So the ability to see opportunities, it is very, very critical. Having clarity on the direction, and you see this in many organization, both in the West as well as in the developing world, where people just go every day. They turn up to work and they just do things, and in many cases, you stop an individual and it's like, why are you doing this? Or, why are you doing things the way you are doing? And, you would be surprised with the percentage of individuals that, they just wouldn't really have a clear answer, why they're doing what they're doing. The ability to analyze, what's happening externally outside the organization, it is something quite critical. I mean, we see now, as an example of that, with COVID, many organizations, try to really respond to that. So they've looked at the external environment. The new world with COVID is completely different than what is happening before COVID. The conference we have right now, with the level of engagement, this is something which is probably would have been a little bit hard to imagine that you could really have something as successful as this in while working remotely. We see so many consulting organizations right now. They have like COVID offering to enable remote working, time management, remote assessments of individuals and the rest of it. So the ability to really touch and sense what's really happening outside your organizations and how that can impact the organization, then use that as an input to drive the way you do things. That's quite critical. Then there is the various things like the ability to solve problems, the ongoing planning and the update of those planning based on the various elements, and being able to really rapidly adjust the way you do things. And obviously, the ongoing implementation of what has been planned, and really having that culture of accountability. Organization where everyone really is focusing not to get into troubles. Normally the overall performance is not really that great. Where leaders use some of their direct employees and or even other stakeholders outside the organization as a scapegoats and things like that. Normally this organization who cannot really perform. So really the stronger are the organization in these points, the better they are positioned to implement and deliver strategy. So we've came up with very specific, very, very simple framework that we use throughout our engagement with clients, where we talk about strategy in terms of, a strategy, it goes through the various phases. We start with developing the strategy. So that's something that needs to be done. Then we take that strategy and we translate it into something that meaningful and digestible to the organization in the various areas. Then there is a phase of really aligning the various components of the organization with that translated strategy. And from that point, literally, just going and doing the planning and so on and so forth. So to develop a strategy, and I'm not going to spend so much time on this, there is this planning cycle that really critical to do. So which is, again, it touches to some of the point that I was talking about earlier. So, the ability to analyze the environment, and probably you guys heard about, things like SWOT and PISTOL and the various business models and, doing interviews, surveys and things like that. All of this is literally just going through and doing an analysis of the environment, both internally and externally. Then there is some strategy fundamental, mission, values, vision is what people think about all the time, but it's literally, it is just a bridge. It is a bridge to go and set some sort of like initial blueprint on to basically answer, the very key two questions, what do we want to do and how are we going to do it? Then there is, as you go and develop, there is things like strategic themes, which is, the key areas of focus across the organization, the change agenda, and how that's supported by the leadership, and how that also, supports some of the strategic aspirations. And you see all this all the time, very clear on organization who achieved major transformation. There is always really strong strategic aspirations that cascade throughout the organization. Then the next stage after that is actually the translation itself, where, we write about the objective, we do the KPIs and we do the planning and the rest of it. And the cycle continues. So some organizations do this every 5 years. Some of them, they do every 10 years. Some organization, they have a yearly planning cycle where they actually revisit this cycle, but literally, this is the overall strategic planning cycle. Moving from that, it comes to the, how we translate strategy into an actual actionable items throughout the organization. And this is normally the stage where many organizations fail. So, you've got, leaders with policymakers, they will come and, they will bring, McKinsey or, the like, Booz or, some of these, big strategy house, and they will come and they will, draw a very nice strategy map. They will hand it over. And when it comes to actually translating that strategy into actual actions, normally, this is the area where things can be quite challenging. So if you look at the triangle we have right now, at the very top, there is the aspirational side of things. And at the bottom, we have the tangible in terms of what can be achieved. Unfortunately, the main reason for the majority of the failures in transformation generally is, the fact that, everyone is focusing on the top side of the pyramids. And the more you go down, the further you go down, is the area where there isn't that much focus, because that's literally when you do the hard job. The other thing, on things like, vision and mission, there is lots of bad practices. In fact, even across the consulting. So for example, it is quite common that people would come up with vision in terms of, we want to be the best organization to deliver so and so. Then they have the mission, which is, what do we do? you know. And ideally, when you work with a strategy, the very first thing you should do is work out your mission, not your vision. The reason being is the mission is the reason why do you exist as a business, you know, or as organization, you know. So uh, if we are into car making, you know, our mission, you know, will be, you know, building a car, you know. The vision might be, you know, being number one, you know, car manufacturer in whatever discipline, you know. So you cannot really set the target before you are really clear about what you're going to do as the business. Then things get translated to objectives and the rest of it. Uh, so mission is the key. And the key, the most important element to have a good mission statement is to have a very, very simple mission statement. So the majority of let's say, like FTSE 200, FTSE 100 or FTSE 500 in sort of like the US, these successful big organizations, they have normally very, very simple mission statements. So if you look at Google, you know, their mission is to organize the world information and make it universally accessible and useful. It's as simple as that. Yes, you know, Google has all these apps and, you know, they have so many ventures in so many areas, but literally that's their mission, as simple as this. LinkedIn, you know, they want to connect the world professionals, you know, and make them more productive and successful. eBay, to be the world's favorite destination for discovering great value and unique selection. PepsiCo, you know, with all the byproduct that they have, you know, across not just the drinks and, you know, all the other, you know, product and even services right now across food and privileges, to create more smiles with every sip and every bite. Very, very simple, you know. Sony, you know, the same, you know, a company that inspires to fulfill your curiosity. Microsoft, you know, it is to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more, you know, and so on and so forth. These are very, very good mission statements for, you know, organization who's doing very well. You could, I mean, I don't want to give examples of some of the bad ones, but, you know, in the developing world, especially, you go and you look at the mission statement in, you know, for some of those organizations, and it is really complex, lengthy, and it really doesn't help everyone to, you know, work and think in the same manner. So simplicity is a key. Balance scorecard is a framework to form strategy. It is the most, let's say, famous framework, but it's not the only framework that's there, and it can be quite good if you developing and working and implementing that strategy for commercial, you know, organizations. But for example, if you're working, for example, if you're building a strategy or you executing a strategy for an NGO, you know, the financial side might not be very strong. So it is good, but, you know, we just need to treat it carefully. And one of the key things about strategy is really to have a governance framework around the strategy. And what that governance framework does, it makes sure that there is standards and there is measures and there is tools across the organization at the various levels, you know, from the leadership all the way to the individuals, where everything is linked together. The organization is being driven as a single vehicle, you know, with a single focus, and so on and so forth. So aligning the organization to deliver the strategy, normally there is various elements. So once we have a strategy, to really implement a strategy, you can do two things in an organization. You know, you could either be running initiatives or projects, or you could be doing things on a day-to-day basis, you know, as part of your business as usual. So literally looking at at those element of the strategy, which can be translated to projects. So, for example, we are building new system, we are merging, certain departments together. We are, moving a headquarter from one place to another place, and literally any other project that can help to achieve the overall, vision and mission of the organization. The other executing vehicle for that is the business as usual. So between projects and business as usual, these are the two things that organization need to think about, when it comes to how they would execute strategy. Okay, and normally, as I mentioned earlier, that's the point where things can fail. So, not picking up the right project to fulfill the strategy, and not change the business as usual in terms of, the processes, the policies, the procedures, and even the systems being used and so on, to fulfill that strategy. That's another area where if we then get it right, normally the achievement of the strategy can be quite challenging. So planning is a good thing. Yearly planning is what good organizations tend to do. So basically, they go back and they look at the corporate strategy and they look at the operational plan for the 2-3 years. Then every year they go and basically redefine what are they doing, in terms of cascading of those operational plans to the individual departments. And they develop it further, they validate it, and they go through the cycle again. So good organization, literally, they do this on yearly basis. Another touch on aligning the strategy. Having some sort of PMO, project management office, that can look at the various projects, making sure they still fulfill those strategic objectives and so on, is quite critical. Having a framework to deliver that is quite critical as well. And the very critical thing is literally to use the strategy to drive decision making. Okay, and that decision, across the various levels. So initially, we have those three levels. We have a corporate strategy and some business plans. There is some sort of approved budgets, and there is some sort of like initiatives and so on. And literally, decisions at all levels should be driven by the strategy, or by the element that cascaded from the strategy. So, as a leader, if there is, an investment decision you need to make, there is 2 competing initiatives, you should really go back and test those 2 initiatives in terms of, priority-wise, which one is needed before the other one, but also, if you test them against the various strategic pillars that you have, which one is really supporting your strategy more than the other one. So, using a strategy to drive decision making across the organization in all levels is quite critical as well. Then planning operations. So any operation, for it to work, there is number of business processes that normally, might have, different level of maturity depending on the organizations. They will be organizational structure, that can change and adapt and so on. There is some technology element, and there is data and information element as well, and there is some services. So literally, all these, if we call it, organizational facets, they need to be connected together. The business processes should be driven by the strategy, and the way the organization is structured. It should work around how we can optimize the delivery of those business processes. When we implement technologies, those technologies should be designed on the basis of how those business processes are, being gathered and formed and optimized and so on. When we look at data and information, I know my colleagues, probably touched into this in way more deeper, but for us in very high levels, what data and data clusters that we have across the organization, what standards that's being used, for information classifications, for security, and so on and so forth. The other element to really realize that strategy as well is literally the way we design our business processes to use all the inputs in terms of, what are the quality criteria, what are the strategic context, what the market imperatives and so on and so forth. And at the end, really having things integrated together. So, what the finance team is doing versus what the procurement team are doing, it need to gel together. The way the HR manager is hiring resources, it really need to support the overall strategy of the organization. The way your procurement function operate. I mean, like as an example, I had one client recently where the procurement manager was really, like the personality of that individual was like really sort of like, driver and strong and the rest of it. But he was not really supporting the core business. So, he wanted to do things in a way which he felt it's best practice. It make that department shine, but it doesn't really support the core business. And this is really due to the lack of common strategy, common goals, and common framework of developing, delivering, and cascading that strategy. I'm gonna jump on that one. Okay, the final areas on the strategy is the ability to monitor the performance of the strategy on the various levels as well. So really having a performance management framework which is measure things at various levels. So if you look at the left-hand side there, this is just an example. We have sort of like let's say on a government level there was number of strategy drivers. Then we have an example, a Minister of Education. They really needed to look at those government strategic drivers and use it to form its own drivers. So, for example, if the government has an overall strategic priority to excel in export and import, or to be an IT hub and things like that, the education should really follow that. Then when you go one level down in terms of a department within that ministry, they should really be looking at what are those strategic drivers at the ministry level and how they can contribute to it. So each department might have their own departmental plan for the year, but again, those departmental plans, they should really be aligned with the overall ministry. Then it goes down all the way till we get to the employee level, the individuals there. So each individual in each department, they should really have some sort of like yearly objective that really support the department objective, which support the minister objective, which support the government objective, and without really this proper cascade down, you can't really deliver your strategy. It is literally just is a nice piece of paper. If you can't cascade it, it is not really of a great value. This on the left, but when you look at the right hand side here as well, yes, we need to cascade things down, but also we need to measure things. So the same way we've done the cascading down, we measure things up also in very similar manner. So we manage employee performance based on the individual objective that they've created and support their departmental plan. We manage the performance of divisions, based on the KPIs that they've agreed initially, and it was part of the measurement for the objective that they set internally to support the ministry generally, and the same for the ministry.
We're running out of time.
Okay, so I'll conclude quickly, and so on and so forth. The very last slide is this is a story of John Kennedy, and basically, he was walking around NASA headquarters, in 1961, looking at the facility being introduced to various people, and he looked at the janitor, who was actually mopping the floor at that time, and he asked him, what do you do here? So like John Kennedy asked the janitor, what do you do here? And the answer of the janitor was, I'm helping to put a man on the moon. That's how, the vision of the organization was cascaded all the way down to the lowest level, across the organization. And that's really demonstrate, good understanding of the vision, really wanting to be part of that vision for that organization, and being engaged and really feeling the contribution, because, the janitor is not less than anyone else in the organization. They have a vital role. And, we are all small building blocks, and without those individual building blocks, we can't really, deliver and contribute. So I'm gonna jump all these. Do we have 2 minutes for a small video?
Yeah, okay, 2 minutes.
Okay, sorry. So basically, this is, normally we go through, sorry. So this is one of our products. Okay, Dr. Mohamed, I think I'm having technical difficulties, so I think I'll stop here. I'll share the link after this. I heard
Mohamed, sorry to interrupt. You can carry on the question, and I will find it and I will upload it for you.
I'll share it, yeah.
Okay,
you
no
can
problem.
go for the questions, Chair.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Mohamed Elhag, thank you very much. This was a very insightful presentation. It helped tie in the entire day together. When your first presentation, your first slide, when you said the words SWOT and pastel, you gave me nightmares, reminded me of the nightmares of my MBA days, but they're all behind us now. And then you started linking into the vision and the mission, and you started bringing in these business acronyms, and I was trying to see how this is going to link in together. But you defined it very well in terms of what is the strategy for the company or the organization or the government, and how does that manifest itself into an operational side of things, i.e. the day-to-day activities rather than just the general vision of it. And then from then on, you linked it to the data, all the sessions that we talked about the transforming, knowing the company and understanding the values, the value of communication, and you brought in the data element and how data drives the operations, which drives the vision, which drives the strategy. And then later on, you linked it to the first session today where we talked about the academic development, and you gave a good example of the Sudan development where we, during our presentations, highlighted some of the limitations in terms of human capacity development and infrastructure and lack of communication and fuel issues and other things like that. So this was a very good strategic top level rather than operational level where you linked in what we aspire to do and how data can help us transfer all these things together here. Can you elaborate a little bit further on how we can use some of the data in terms of from an operational point of view, and how does that trickle into the strategy point of view? You had a graph, I think, where you said the operations and then the strategy, and they were
Dr. Mohamed, sorry to interrupt you. I have the video. Shall I play it for you before you start your questions?
Yeah, sure.
No. Okay, I will do that now. Okay. So, sorry.
Yeah.
I think I have, even myself, I need to remind how to share it. Just 1 second. I think it should work now. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
So I am done here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alam.
Just some context on that video before I
Feel free.
So it's basically this is a product that we've made to literally help people to translate things from strategy all the way down to individual initiative, then help them to monitor those initiatives. If we had more time, normally what I do at the end of this, instead of showing the video, will literally say like, that's a strategic objective that went down to, link to the vision, and it went down to translate it to a project. Then from the project, this activity came, and so on and so forth. But maybe in the future, we can go through that. So answering the question, the link between data and strategy. Okay, so normally, the way we look at things is, we don't see data linked to strategy directly. We see it linked and generated by some sort of middle tier,
Right.
and that middle tier, so for example, if we look at something as very simple as invoice processing in a finance function, someone is submitting for, an invoice, someone else is taking that invoice and doing various approvals, and someone else doing the payment. So there is various data element linked to that invoice at the various stages. The way we have those, the relationship, we see that data is linked to the processes, and the process is linked to the strategy. So like the strategy get cascaded down in terms of ways of doing things, but then there is the supporting element in terms of like classification of those data, security standards, of those data, reutilization of the data. So for example, if our business process is very well integrated and it's end to end, some of the concept of entering data once from a system point of view, can be implemented successfully. But if and you see this a lot. I mean, we see this normally in system implementation when it come and you have to go and input something, and in a different system or on a 3 screen later on, you go and input the same thing.
Yeah.
And normally that divider and that break in the journey is related more to breaking the business process itself. So the business process that was used to develop the system, which is driving that data, is broken itself. And many organizations normally, they try to fix that on the technology front, you know, or on the data level, and not going back to the business process and fix that. And what they end up with, that they had very bad business process, and that very bad business process is now automated. So you can't even work around it. So things used to take 15 signatures, you know, to get something approved, rather than going back and say, okay, do we need the 15? No, we only need 3. Okay, and we need 3 now. Let's build a system that, you know, take us through the 3 signature. We go and build a system that, you know, automate the 15 signatures. So even though previously, before automation, he used to get, you know, the ability to get an exemption and things like that, is not helping. And that impact directly the data as well, you know?
No.
So,
I appreciate what you're saying, because as someone who works for universities, I live this in a daily basis, where the layers of operational strategies are different from the organizational strategies. And all of a sudden, as you said, the process that's being put in is based on the legacy rather than the improved system. Once it's improved, once it's implemented, we are stuck with it. And I think this is one of the elements where COVID has highlighted some of the errors in the previous strategies. And that's where we're teasing out all these different tools and re-imaging the way we educate people, and what is the new norm in terms of distance learning, in terms of open university functionalities with remote labs and other things like that. So I appreciate exactly what you're saying. Thank you very much for that. We have a question from the FB, which I assume the Facebook. It's important presentation about strategy data. Link with the NGOs or institution. I hope you link it with the resource and lack of knowledge and skills.
Absolutely. I mean, this is very critical, because, you know, if you don't have the knowledge, you cannot execute the, you know, the activities. But again, like probably very similar to the way maybe I've answered the data questions, we looked at the business process as that linkage as well, because the business process is the place where you would actually identify the skills of the individuals need to carry the task. So, you know, if the task is basically, you know, to go and diagnose certain error in a machine, you know, so the process for that diagnosis will be documented in a business process, you know, and that will probably be the right layer to link the skills needed to deliver that process. Again, not the data, you know. So I mean, we probably look at things a little bit different, but we really see business processes is the intermediary that, you know, bring everything together. Like, you know, it bring the skills, the HR element, and not only the skills, even the organizational element. So do I have things in one department or 2 departments, you know? And again, you know, we see the organization to be structured properly and effectively and efficiently. It needs to be driven by the business facets of the organization. So yes, the skills is a critical element, but you cannot really look at raw data and decide from that raw data what my job description should look like, you know. But if you look at the business process, which also drive the data, you know, you can use that actually, you know, to drive, you know, the whole sort of like skills required, how those skills can be categorized into various positions, how those positions can be realigned in org unit, and how those org unit can together make up an overall organization structure.
Okay, that's quite interesting. And can you give us a brief introduction in terms of the strategy and the risk? Because at one of the stages we talked today is re-imaging the universities in terms of moving to entrepreneurial organization, where innovation is at the heart of it to generate income for self-perpetuating income and sustainable income. So there's a big element of risk with that. And at the university as an entity in the new norm after COVID, has to change and realign their structures and strategies in association with innovation and entrepreneurship. So how do you see your trickling down of the strategy coming down features itself?
So the way again, and I'm probably taking the pure consulting approach into this. The slide where I've gone through and I've said, like to translate strategy, there is two vehicles.
Yeah.
One vehicle is the ongoing, improvement project, and the rest of it, and the other vehicle is, the ongoing business processes. So from a risk management point of view, normally there is two types of risk. There is enterprise risk management, which is that normally related to the BAUs, it's like, so the business as usual type of processes and services and operation. Then there is the project management risk, which is related to the project. So I think the question is like going back is for those universities to really transform and change the way they do things, what are the vehicles for that transformation? Is it new initiatives? Is it new learning system, for example? Is it different ways in how things being managed? Then after that, risk management is risk management. It's like we identify, we categorize, we mitigate and we monitor. But how we implement it will depend on which vehicle actually we are using, because yes, there is very key decisions, not just in education actually. It's across all industries now. Post-COVID, the new word after COVID, everyone is using that. That's right now. Is what is your vehicle to translate your organization into tangible actions? Are we changing the way we do things, or are we bringing new things on board? We're getting new systems. We're getting new training programs. So for example, I had a client in UAE, in Abu Dhabi, at the start of the COVID, and it was a group of private schools, and they wanted to switch into e-learning, for the various reasons, like everyone. And one of the things that group did, which is probably not many other schools did, I think even in the UK there was some issues as well. They did give all the teachers 2 weeks full-time training on how they can deliver and represent and manage the kids online.
Okay.
And it's been really, really beneficial for those schools, because for many other teachers it was just left to them. They had their materials, their method of delivery. It was very specific. They used to it. Their experience. They've been doing it, times and times again over the year. Suddenly, once you take you take the board away. You take the eye contacts away. And even from the kids and the students, you take the side conversation away. So like, like I was sitting next to my colleague, the teacher, or the lecturer, was, going through it. But, maybe I would write small comment in a paper and I would give it over. That's part of the experience of being taught, for some of those guys. These schools, they did something about it. They didn't just say, they did not just say, okay, our strategy now is to deliver online, get on with it. They took that, they translated down into, training programs, deliver those training programs, monitor them, measure them, then here we go. Those teachers had the enablers, basically, to execute that.
And this links in with what we talked about capacity development earlier on in the first session before the data management sessions. It's very important because all of a sudden, to sustain our organizations, our functionalities, and maintain our vision and strategy and income and other things like that, we became reactive instead of proactive into the systems. And this is big element that COVID has exposed all organizations, not just academia, everywhere else. I mean, all of a sudden in March, we had to move teaching from, as you said, a board into an online platform. And teaching March, May, and June, April, May, June, was a nightmare for all of us because we were not skilled. but the fact that we incubated over the summer, we developed our strategies, we started implementing things like VBox and integrating the classroom and making it synchronous, making it more interactive, has enabled us. So capacity development has enabled that, but that meant we had to react as fast as possible. And that's why visions and strategies became very important in terms of execution, the operational elements here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohamed Elhag. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I mean, one of the things is I mean, you know, like we are working with Zoom now, you know. So properly to train someone on Zoom, you know, literally, you know, that's how you log in. These are the various options. That's where you do the test, blah, 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 all of that. It doesn't take more than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So you could invest that 20 minutes in upskilling the individuals, or you could give them the username and password and let them suffer with it for days before they can get used to it. And literally, then just picking up those key areas of investment is really critical.
I mean, nowadays we started using elements like VBox and Collaborate and other things where we are trying to mimic a real life experience inside it and ensure engagement by asking the questions. So the vision, the strategy, the reactiveness to the system has become a process of innovation where we had to innovate things in terms of the operations here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. It's been fascinating to listen to you.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.